Go take a look at blueguardianfutures.com or click the link in the description.
As you can see, Interactive Brokers, like this is literally like, it's the actual web page. You know, it's not just like some screenshot of a MetaTrader thing. Here's all the trades, fees, you know, whatever you want to see. But as you can see, this is just in the last, I think under 30 trading days, I just started this account back up and it went from 71,000 all the way to 112,000. And I did all this trading live with my group as well. There was one trade I took that was a swing trade that obviously I didn't stream for multiple days. But most of this was actually done live in front of people too. So just to kind of show a little bit, because, you know, at the end of the day, I get it. In an industry where it's definitely a lot of bad actors, when you see somebody get accused of something, naturally you want to believe it, right? Because most of the time people are, you know, doing malpractice and bad things. So I do think it's important to show transparency and kind of prove my case. But yeah, here's me just making $40,000 in the last 27 days.
So just overview, what kind of strategy are you trading these days? How would you sort of classify it?
So, you know, it definitely has some of the ICT inspired stuff. Like it's based on liquidity. But the difference between my strategy and most ICT strategies is that I'm not just trading a reversal. You know, most traders in ICT, all they want to talk about is, you know, the market getting manipulated, right? Smart money, manipulating, and they want to just trade reversals. But I think if everybody pulls up their trading view and looks at the chart, how many reversals are there versus continuations? It's a lot more continuations, honestly. There just is objectively. But I think so many people, ICT kind of almost, it resonates with them because they think, oh, that's why I've been losing. I didn't know the smart money was manipulating me. When in reality, most people just don't have a good strategy or they don't stick to it. It has nothing to do with reversals or being manipulated. So one of the biggest differences in my strategy is, yes, I look at liquidity, but I look at it as an area where the market is going to show its hand. So what I mean by that is, yes, you might get a reversal, but if you don't, if the market hits an area that is a high amount of liquidity and you don't see large participants absorbing buyers, right, at that area, like let's just say it's a high, and you don't see the buyers get absorbed, okay, well, guess what? Guess where the market's going? It's going to continue, right? So I just look at those areas as pivotal points to be able to get a barometer on what's going on, rather than always just trying to play some, you know, advanced, complicated ICT reversal pattern or something. It's very simple. I just use one time frame. I trade at one time a day, and it's one model, right? It's very, very simple, removes a lot of the fluff that makes people unprofitable. And I think that's important, right? Because I know when I first started trading ICT, and this is why ICT gets a bad rep, there's all these like ridiculous big words and, you know, this whole like, I know what you don't know dogma, right? Like there's some secret algorithm. It's all just marketing. It's all just hype. All that is made up to influence people and to try to build a cult. Okay. Sure. Are there algorithms that run on the market? Yeah. Is there some guy sitting in some control room? It's like the Illuminati? No, probably not. It's probably a bunch of people way deeper than we understand. All that to say, I kind of veer away from the traditional ICT where it's all of this, you know, ridiculous. The funniest one to me, you know, do you know what a fair value gap is? I mean, obviously, yeah. So like, you know, the midpoint, right? This is the funniest name of all this ICT to me. I joke with my team all the time about this, but it's called a consequent encroachment.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah,
like, dude, come on! Like, you mean to tell me that you didn't make that up, trying to make it sound smarter than it was? It's just something hitting a midpoint, right? So that's, you know, I think that ridiculousness kind of embodies exactly what I'm not about when it comes to trading ICT. So I always hate even, you know, saying I trade ICT because I think you get associated with that kind of nonsense, and that's like the polar opposite of what I do.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to my mentor, he's not like an ICT style, but he's got a number of different names for things, of which he used to just help him understand what he was doing. And I said, like there's one particular thing that works very well. And I said, how do you think it works well? Why do you think this works well? He goes, I don't know. Maybe like somebody at Deutsche Bank rang up somebody at Citibank and said, right, when this happens, we're going to buy. And maybe that's it. He goes, I don't know. Who knows? But it just works. Anyway, let's dive into a few questions here that are going to help some of the listeners. So to start off with, I mean, what are some of the common mistakes? I know you've got a bunch of students as well. Some of the common mistakes you see that new traders typically make.
I think the number one is that, truth be told, I'd say if you took 100 people who are new to trading, most of those 100 people got attracted because of the hopes of making money easily without working. Right? Trading's gambling, right? Like, let's be honest. You can have better odds than some, but it's gambling. So it attracts an interesting crowd of people. And I think that for the most part, the crowd of people it attracts that end up suffering and struggling for a long time, they haven't really gone on to do a lot of really hard things outside of trading. That's just my take. A lot of people be like, oh, screw this guy. He doesn't know me. And I'm not saying everybody, but in my experience, most of the time, people get in because they think it's easy. And they think that they're going to just, buy a course or watch some YouTube videos and go get a prop firm and, go to Dubai and get a Rolex and all this stuff, right? Now that obviously can happen, but I think that people come in with the wrong expectations. And I know that's kind of like the cliche thing everybody says, but it's true. Now, the second mistake that I think a lot of people make that doesn't get talked about, I think that people place way too much importance on everything. And what I mean by that is like, for example, I see people get a prop firm challenge that costs them with Apex, like $50? $50, right? And then people will go in and they will stress out when they lose a trade on this prop firm, or they'll risk 1/10 of the prop firm on each trade. We're talking about like $5 essentially of risk on a trade. And people will drive themselves crazy and literally create trauma for themselves, all because they've placed way too much importance on either failing a challenge or getting funded or making a winning trade or losing a trade. All of these things in the grand scheme don't really matter at all, right? Like whether or not you win a trade in a day or have a bad day, have a good day, fail or pass some 50K prop challenge, it doesn't matter because you didn't get into this with the hope of whatever small outcome you're going to get from that. You got into this to make life-changing money. I was talking to a guy and he said, how much money do you want to make from trading? He said $1,000 a month. And I said, you're a liar. You got into this to make $1,000 a month. Maybe you're not as smart as I thought you were because there's a lot easier things you can do to make $1,000 a month. Assuming you're in a first world country. Now, most people got into this because they want to make big money, but they let small things have so much importance that they act almost like, it's kind of like, if you wanted to go talk to a girl at the bar or something, and you just think, oh my God, she's out of my league. You're going to go up there and you're going to start tripping over your words. You're going to be having your hands in your pockets, acting like a weirdo, all because you place so much importance on it. Well, there's going to be some ugly dude that comes up dumb, cocky, and he's going to be able to talk normally and have a better shot than you. And it's the same thing in trading. So I think that people place way too much importance on insignificant things. And, like people, like they'll say, oh, I'm going to, back test 150 trades. I'm going to demo trade for 6 months and do all this preparation to go out and buy a prop firm challenge. Like, guess what's going to happen when you go out and buy the challenge? You're going to restart and actually start learning because you're actually doing something. But people place so much importance on, it's like they're going to do the fucking Olympics or something, right? So I think that's another big mistake people make is they take it way too seriously in the insignificant phases of things.
That's a nice way to put it. And I think, it is part of the overall psychological issues that come with trading, right? And people struggle with. One of the most difficult things I think people find is trying to be consistent, right? So consistency is the whole game, right? Because it doesn't matter if you have a winning trade or a winning day. It's what you can do over the long term.
Hey folks, what a view behind me. I'm at Black Bull Markets headquarters here in Auckland, New Zealand. Speaking of views, you can get TradingView paid plans for free at Black Bull Markets, saving you up to $600 a year. That's right, get either the Essential, Plus or Premium plans absolutely free, and all you need to do is trade from one lot a month at Black Bull Markets. And you can also get a 100% deposit bonus for your first deposit up to $1,000. All you need to do is click the Trading Nut link in the description below.
Do you have any strategies or techniques that you've found effective at generating consistency?
Yeah, I think that, to be brutally honest, it's something that comes with time. Like, in order to have consistency, you have to have what I like calling rational confidence. Like, there's two types of confidence. There's maybe, people watch this, they see me making money, they see my broker statement, I'm going to teach a strategy in a second. They might have some confidence in that strategy. But do you really, though? If you go out and you win 5 or 6 trades and then you take 3 or 4 losses, do you actually have confidence enough to stay consistent with that? The answer is most likely no. It's not rational confidence. And you can't trick yourself. You can't buy into some course and look up to some influencer or whatever it is and get real confidence. And you can't really get confidence from anything except doing it yourself. And that takes time, right? So in order to get the kind of confidence that it takes to go through a losing streak, I think it's two things. It's time and also understanding what success even looks like. Because a lot of people see, and I see all this nonsense, like you'll see people trying to sell education and they'll say, we'll help you make X amount per month. Anyone who trades, like, look, I might have just made, that $40,000 in the last month, right? Does that mean I'm going to make $40,000 a month? No, probably not. Maybe I make more. I don't know. I mean, if I trade with a larger account or whatever, you never know. But the point of what I'm trying to make is you might average a certain amount of money per month, but to say you're going to get the same amount of money every single month, I think that like you're working backwards from the wrong target, right? Because if you're expecting, I'm going to make 10K every month, then everything that you do that doesn't lead you to making 10K a month, you're going to shift away from it. It's hard for you to stay consistent. While maybe that same strategy would have made you 120K in the year, just not 10K a month. Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does make sense. It's having these sort of predefined targets is kind of just ludicrous in a way. I mean, it sort of reminds me of, I used to always say to myself, and it seems to be like almost every week, I'm starting from scratch again. I'm starting from scratch. This is day one. This is day one. Again. Like I'm starting something new. I saw in one of your sort of manifestos that you posted, you were talking about the fact that people are getting too hung up on, trying to create that perfect environment, and this is the sort of the one thing that I'm going to do. Whereas you were like almost saying, let's just be more fluid about it, not be so constrained. Do you want to explain that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that this also kind of ties hand in hand with the placing too much importance on things. Like, for example, so many people I see that trade ICT, they think that, you have to have some daily bias. This is like the most regurgitated, repeated term that I see all the time. And to be truthful, yeah, it can work to have a daily bias. If you can get really good at calling it, it can help you, right? But for most people, it becomes the biggest bottleneck. And instead of thinking for themselves and realizing, hey, you actually don't need this, they're going to be rigid and say, oh no, ICT said it. I watched it on YouTube. I'm just going to keep running my head into a wall and doing the same thing over and over again, even though it doesn't work. Instead of actually thinking for yourself. Because truth be told, people give you advice based on what worked for them. Right? Like recently, I've gotten advice on a business standpoint from people who ran 9-figure companies. I took that advice and applied it exactly as they said, and it just didn't work. Why? Was it because that they're wrong? No. Right? There's no right or wrong except in this current situation. But most traders look to stay very, very rigid into something they've been taught by somebody, whether they paid that person or if they found it on YouTube, whatever it is. And instead of thinking for themselves, they just they don't. It's like there's only one foot in front of the other. There's no critical thinking, and I think that people that want to succeed in an industry where most people fail, much less very few people ever really succeed and make big money. Do you think those people that succeeded like that? You think they didn't think for themselves? Like it's a ludicrous way to look at it, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like that accountability thing. So I've paid the money to you. You've taught me how to trade, so you're now accountable. So I'm not accountable. I can just sit back and if it doesn't work, it's on you and nothing is on me because I'm not at fault. I can't be at fault. That's the kind of thinking that I've had before. I'll be honest, I've had it before, and I'm sure a lot of people listening are finding themselves in that boat either now or in the past. Now, you mentioned losing streaks, winning streaks. You've got roller coaster of emotions here. How do you deal with things like a winning streak, even or a losing streak? How did you, I suppose, you deal with them in the past, and how do you deal with them now?
So, based on I've been through a lot in life, man, as most people watching this, as we talked about earlier. So I think that there is a layer of desensitization for me, right? Like just being completely frank, I think that I'm probably much more stress tolerant than most people. And just in general. And I think that plays a big part. I also never have really gave a shit about like losing money. And I think that most traders that I talk to, that this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, where most people come into trading and they haven't really seen success anywhere else. So they don't even know what winning even feels or looks like. I also think that breeds a level of insecurity, because I know that if I lose everything right now, if you take everything from me, I'll be rich within a year. Whether it's from trading or business or whatever it is. I know that. Deep in my heart, I have full conviction of that. Most people don't have that. So whenever they have a losing streak or whenever something doesn't work for them, oh my God, it's the end of the world. This has to work. And then guess what they do? They place importance on it because now this has to work. And this ties back in what I was saying earlier. Now, they've placed so much importance on it that they're anxious, they're timid, they're fearful. They're trying to make everything perfect. You see what I mean? So like so many things trickle down from really what kind of person you are and what kind of level of confidence you have And I think that is the bigger killer of most traders, rather than like, oh, I need to buy the better strategy from the next guy. Because truth be told, we can go on a chart here in a minute and we can show people exactly what I do to make money. I mean, there's tons of profitable strategies out there. It's nothing to do with that. It's most of the time that people just aren't to the level mentally they need to be at to succeed in a business where most people fail. So I think that is a big part of like handling losing streaks. It's not so much as like, because like I don't place a label on like what I would do to handle a losing streak. I just don't really give a fuck about it in the first place. I don't think there's really any way to like coddle yourself out of like meditate or like you're going to jump in a cold plunge or, like it's just not reality. It's like, if you care about something and there's a level of importance to it, when it doesn't go your way, you will be mentally impacted. It's just a fact of human nature. It's just how much do you care about it in the first place?
Yeah. That's it. It's so much. That's so true, right? So it's how much you care about a losing streak. So if you go in with the intention of losing, that's probably about the only thing you can do. Then that might help you get over that barrier until it's like going into a cold shower and you don't really notice it that much because you've done it so often. Now, what about like maintaining focus and discipline when you're trading? So have you got anything that you do special to make sure that you're, not drifting off and getting distracted and that kind of thing?
Absolutely. I think that most people, they try to stay disciplined so they become successful, and that's where they mess up. And what I mean by that is whenever you do anything just for the positive outcome, you won't actually do it. Let me give you an example, right? So recently my dad got a pretty like serious health diagnosis. And he changed his whole life and all of his lifestyle around that. Now, did he know beforehand that these lifestyle changes probably needed to be made? Maybe. It's arguable to say yes, right? But if you knew that something would make you healthier and you didn't do it, but then you knew that you have a chance of dying if you don't do it, you immediately will do it, right? And I think that people need to replicate that same kind of way of thinking, because humans, we don't run on what we want. We run on what we'll accept, right? So if you don't tie not being focused or not being disciplined or not following a strategy, if you don't tie doing those things to an extremely painful outcome, then it doesn't matter. You're never going to change. That's why most people don't change till they're at rock bottom. You don't change because you went and watched some motivational video or because you see people winning. That just gives you a feeling that's really good for a short amount of time. You change because you have to. And you can either let life recreate that for you by actually hitting rock bottom. Most traders lose everything. You hear the horror stories of them gambling their lives away or losing relationships because they're so addicted to trading. It's like the dark side of things. For me, for example, I lost hundreds of thousands of dollars before I made this work. And in fact, I really didn't even make it work until I had no other option because I had gotten charged as a drug kingpin. I couldn't get a job. I had no choice, right? And I had people to take care of. And that was the only reason that I was able to actually snap myself into it and take it seriously. And now throughout life, like I learned to recreate that because so many people run from the negative, but I think you should be very, very, very warm with it, very present with it every day, and not in a negative way. Like, in fact, that's the most positive thing you can do, right? Is if you just recreate, like, not so much like, oh, well, I'm going to track my habits and trade well because then I'll be profitable. Yeah, that's fucking cute. That's gonna go right out the window as soon as your mind's all messed up in the markets. What you need to say is like, okay, like what does my life look like in 6 months or a year if I don't do these things? Like how much money and time have I wasted? How many bad habits have I formed that are going to impact my life? Like how depressed am I? How stressed am I? Those are the things you need to remind yourself that are going to happen in order to stay disciplined, and then it becomes much easier.
Hey, if Candlestick still confuse you, they're costing you more than you think. My private mentor JJ's decoded 25,000 hours of trading into one better candlestick. Click the link in the description or visit tradingnut.com to watch the free video and grab the free guide.
What's your approach to risk management like, and how's it evolved over time?
So it's not static. Like I think another thing that gets said in the industry that's like comical to me is where they just say just risk 1%. Right. So like I developed a whole software that does this. I don't like sell a subscription to it. It's just for like my team and I. But essentially what it does is it'll take your trading statistics, everything from like how many times you trade, your win rate, risk to reward, session, market you're trading, all that, and determine this based on like your trailing drawdown. Because everything comes down from like what your actual like ruin is. Like what is ruin to you? Is it blowing a funded account? Is it a certain amount of money in your personal account that you are willing to lose? What is it, right? Because then you have to operate backwards from that. Everything comes backwards from a North Star, right? Same way companies run, same way risk management works. Now, once you've identified that, and for most people, it's going to be failing their prop firm challenge, you need to understand how to get the most out of that. Now, if it's trailing drawdown, you need to risk heavier earlier on and descend that risk. Because when you're at the peak or at starting balance, you have more room till you ruin. And in order to get ahead and actually make any money, you're not going to do that by risking some super tiny small amount, right? Now, I think also that there comes a time, whenever you're a beginner, I do think that you should probably risk more of a static amount, to be clear, because you're probably not profitable. So let me back up a little bit and say that. Now, I'm speaking more what I just said and what I'm saying now to someone who is risk management actually is not just like, how do I not ruin my life, but how do I make money, right? Because risk management is not risk aversion. Most people think of risk management like, oh, if I have good risk management, I'm not going to lose money. You're in the wrong business. Like, you make money by putting yourself at the risk of losing money every day in this business. That's literally the entire point, right? So in order to do that effectively, I think there has to be a level of grading positions. And to be quite honest, like, once you get to a certain point, there is somewhat of a level of discretion, right? Like, you may have saw on Twitter, I took that trade on NASDAQ and I banked like 18K on that swing trade. Now, that trade I took more risk than I usually do on, right? Why did I do that? Well, to be quite honest, like, a lot of people ask me, like, why did you take this trade? Why did you risk it? And I said, dude, I've been doing this almost 9 years. Sometimes you just know. You don't know anything 100%, but sometimes you just, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
I think there's a level of grading positions as well. Like, for me, for example, like, let's say if I am expecting choppy markets, I'm going to risk less. A lot of it comes to market conditions and the setup you're taking, right? Most of it for me is market conditions. Like, if I'm expecting volatile days, I might risk a little more, because once I have identified the side of the market, I want to be able to get a piece of the action. I want to be able to make money. That's what I'm here to do. Now, if I'm looking at the market and saying, okay, like, we're day before FOMC, there's not any news today, market looks kind of crappy. If I even take a trade today, I'm not throwing full position on. Or, like, let's say if I have a scenario, because I don't believe in like bias, I believe in like mapping out a couple different scenarios for the day. Let's say if something happens that wasn't according to plan, but I still look at it like, okay, there's logic to take a trade here. That's where I'll go very light on a trade. But I think can I ask what you did on the tariff day? So it was the day after it was on Thursday, and I was watching in the morning, and a lot of what I do is based on what side of the market's offsides, right? So what happens after a big day like that? What do a lot of people want to do? They want to buy the dip. But if you can clearly see through market structure and overall just absorption, then all these buyers are getting there's all this buying pressure. There's a ton of buyers coming to the market. What's happening? You're coming above a high falling. So what's happening to all these buyers slowly? What's going to happen? They're going to get exhausted. And then when that happens, you get a squeeze. And that was the logic behind that.
Right. Now, you obviously come up with your strategy that we mentioned at the start of the show. So, I mean, when you were determining it and coming up with it, I mean, what was sort of the deciding factor around reducing, I suppose, or getting rid of things that you didn't like or weren't working? And are you ever evolving the strategy in any kind of way?
Yeah, no, great question. So for me, the answer to the evolving, always looking to somewhat evolve, right? Like this year, right? I came up with something called price weighting, which is a way of trailing my stop instead of taking profits in full. Because I was looking back at my data, realizing, wow, a lot of the trades you took ran a lot longer. So I know better than to just say, okay, I'm going to increase my target and just hold, some crazy risk to reward. Instead, once it hits the target that my strategy recommends, that I'm going to trail my stop. And if it gets a nice momentum, cool, I'll catch that move and I won't risk it turning all the way back around, right? Because I'm trailing it pretty aggressively. But if it does move explosively, I can capture that extra risk to reward. So those are the kind of changes that I make. It's never so much like, oh, let's add this new, fair value gap or whatever into it. It's like a database decision. Now, for what made me kind of like filter out most of the stuff is I realized that I actually put a YouTube video out on this. I was looking at a lot of data. It was over 400 trades. And this data was crazy because I went through and I had been tagging for a long time because I had this intuitive thought that like a lot of the stuff I was doing wasn't necessarily necessary, but I couldn't figure out. I need data to make those kind of decisions, right? So I tagged each trade with, did I have a bias? Was the trade against my bias? Or did I come into the market, with just understanding like, hey, I have no idea what's going to happen today. I found that all of my metrics were drastically better when I didn't have a bias.
Right.
So it wasn't because I wasn't looking for one. It was because those were the days that I came in and I looked at it and I said, I don't have a read. So what that told me was, when I came to the market objective and more reacting to what the market was giving me in that session, since I'm trading on the 1 and 5 minute, that I did better because I didn't come in with all this baggage of like, oh, what's happening on the weekly and daily time frame? What's the daily bias? And a pissing contest is what that is. You see people posting something on Twitter that's like this crazy, like they'll have the lines of exactly where it's going to go, every order block it's going to hit, the play-by-play, and then the same person probably didn't even make a fucking dollar that whole time, So I think that for me, I realized that all of that was just kind of like, I won't say like ego do it kind of is ego. It's like you're doing it because you said something earlier about like people paying a mentor and feeling like the accountability shift. I think it can be that. And I also think for people who are a little bit higher level that aren't going to just like blame it on people, because there are people I think that still struggle, that genuinely they take accountability. But I think there is something else that also is a result of that. And it's called the IKEA effect, right? I didn't make this up. It's like a psychological term. So what it is like, IKEA furniture.
Yeah.
It's shit. But if people spend a lot of time putting it together, they'll literally start to brainwash themselves like, oh, wow. It's like, have you ever had that friend that has a total piece of shit car, but it's like a project car and he just loves it? Yeah, it's because you spent a lot of time into it. You've invested a lot into it. This has to work, right? Yeah. And people do the same thing with courses. But a lot of people do this with ICT. This is why people like literally will come with pitchforks if you challenge it, because they know deep down they know that there's something wrong, but they've spent way too much time into this to accept that. So kind of off on a tangent. I don't want to get too off
that's
track.
all right. So some minutiae around here. So the percent that you're now taking on at that original take profit target, what percentage of your overall position on average would you take?
Usually nothing. So essentially, like let's say if I have like a target and the market hits it, if I'm using price weighting, which I only use when I'm expecting the market to expand, I will literally just trail it up to one candle on the entry time frame before that. Most of the time it's not gonna get you like crazy. But for example, like there are some days where I'll catch like crazy moves doing this, because sometimes it hits that session low, or it'll hit that, the area that you're targeting, and it just flushes, right? And on NASDAQ, which is all I trade, a 50 or 100 point move happens, rather often at those points. And it only takes one or two of those to bring your average risk reward up drastically.
It's funny. That's interesting, actually. It's funny you mentioned the daily bias kind of thing. I think I read that in one of your pieces that you put out on X, and I was actually going, yeah, that's like so true. The daily bias, I find that it's of no use whatsoever. And ironically, I'm also one of those people that are doing a weekly, like, here are the arrows, this is where it's going to go, but I'll do it for the markets that I'm trading, but I actually won't use it because I know that during the day it could go anywhere.
Yeah. I did one today. It's Sunday, and I did a call with my group, and it was like, okay, just to be clear, like I'm just going to give you guys. I gave literally one level on NASDAQ, but I said, like I will always say, look, here are the levels. Like here's the logic behind the levels. I might long when we get here. I might short. And like I posted on Twitter, and somebody was like, oh, classic guru move or whatever. I was like, okay, like dude, I literally traded it. Like I'm posting my executions. Like, do you want me to call the market and say like, oh, it's going to hit this level and bounce off of it? Like, is that what we're here to do? But that's what most people think. Like, that's the craziest thing. Or I got a comment on YouTube today that was like, this guy, he commented and he said, he was like, it just hurt my head to even think about it. He was like, yeah, I've went over my chart and I marked out every fair value gap and most of them don't work. Seems like they don't work. And I was just like what? You know what I mean? Like people are just crazy. And anyways, I'm getting off topic here. All that to say, people have no idea half the time what trading even means. And this goes back to what I was saying with people don't understand what success in trading even looks like. That's why when they have a losing streak or their strategy doesn't work for a week or all these things happen, that the whole world crashes down on them, because it's a normal occurrence that they don't understand is normal, right? They look at it like, oh my God, it's over. It's over. I had a losing streak. Game over. I'm going to cry about it and blow my account. Call somebody a scammer.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it's. I think people, if you're listening, if you think you've gone deep, you actually probably haven't gone deep enough. You've got to go way deeper if you're going to get to the point where you can like this stuff starts to make sense. Now, you talked about reviewing your trades. How often do you go? Would you go review 400 trades or even review any trades? And are you reviewing on a daily basis in a smaller capacity?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I'm trading live in front of my group, so I'll review it while I'm on the call most of the time, right, with them. But in terms of like introspective review, I don't really put like a label on it. Like I'm not gonna be like every Friday I mean, I'll look over the week, right? Like I'll kind of skim back over it, and I don't take like a crazy amount of trades. So a lot of times I'm like, I usually trade like 3 days a week, and I'm looking back and I'm like, I can remember the trades I took. I'll look at them and kind of see what I could have done better. But in terms of like really sitting down and like grinding out data, usually that's going to be like at the most every month. And like, for example, the last time I did this was like probably like February, like 2 months ago, a little less than 2 months ago. So again, I don't, like right now I'm in a really good flow, and I'm a big believer of like when shit's working, you don't do nothing except double down. Not on risk, to be clear. Somebody's like, okay, I bet. I'm not saying double down, but you double down on what's working, you continue and scale it, right? Yeah. Whether that's with more capital, whether that's, however you do it. But a lot of times too, on the flip side of that, I want to be clear, you don't only do it when things are bad. You don't want to only do it when things are bad, because then I think when people do it like that, they do it from a place of desperation. It's like I was talking to somebody like, people when they backtest, like I'm kind of a hater with backtesting. I think backtesting has its place. Most people don't use it right. Most people get on backtesting and they'll just sit there and they're just spamming the fucking play button. They're just rushing through it, and then they hit a stop and they get frustrated. They're getting like mad over backtesting, right? Like I was talking to somebody, they were like, "Yeah, dude, backtesting. I'm just so stressed out and frustrated." I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like what? You know what I mean?" But I can see it. I understand it. You know what I mean? But the point I'm trying to make here is you don't want to do things like that out of desperation, like when you're doing bad, because you go in with the wrong intention. And when you go in something wrong intention, is what most people do with trading as a whole. I like to say when your attitude is shit, you're shit. Like if you can't get into a good state of mind when you're doing anything, like literally anything, it could be going to the gym, something as simple, cooking a steak even. I mean, I don't know, that's a little extreme. Some people can probably cook better than others, but anyways, if you don't have a good attitude, right? If you don't have a good attitude about what you're doing, somebody who does will beat you every single time, even if their skill's lower.
Yeah, I find that with golf, funnily enough, because I'm playing a lot of golf at the moment, and like if I go in with a negative attitude, I play terribly, and I'll even look at myself and go, why am I just so down on myself? And the negative spiral going through my head is ridiculous. And then when I don't, I'm like, I'll have a good game. So it is very much something, folks, you need to concentrate on here. Now, roller journaling, do you actually journal? I mean, are you at the stage where you journal, and did you ever journal in the past?
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't ever journal in the times of becoming profitable. I'll just go ahead and say that. Like some people I feel like a lot of influencers would just say shit just to like sound like, what I mean? Like, yes, like I journaled, I meditated every day. Like, I mean, like I did at some points, but I won't sit here and say that's what made me profitable. Honestly, I'm a firm believer that like nothing is going to make you profitable other than making really stupid mistakes and getting sick of yourself. Going back to what I was saying earlier, like how fast do you hit that level of like, I'm not going to accept this kind of behavior. Now, when I started journaling was really after I started seeing some consistency, because I understand from running multiple businesses that data is literally, once things work, right? Or even when things are getting bottlenecked, data is everything, because our minds, just like, for example, whenever somebody says that they want to talk negative about me, say I don't trade, until I show you that broker statement, that's the reason I showed it, is because people operate on numbers. People operate on actually like having solid, full conviction on something, right? And until you have full numbers and an actual valid perspective that is not influenced by emotion, you won't have the same level of conviction that you would. So I think that journaling is almost better for people that are either really close to being profitable or that are profitable trying to find tweaks. Like, for example, I found price weighting. I was just thinking of a way to like, how can I catch these moves? And I went through the whole thought process. I could extend my targets. And I started thinking, I was like, that's not going to, like, that does, then what about all the trades? How many are going to reverse on you, right? How is that going to also affect your psychological level? That's another thing people don't talk about in like making changes. Like they have these strategies where it's like, for example, let's say I give you a strategy that has a 15% win rate, but a 20 RR. I guarantee 99% of people are going to bomb that. They're not going to execute it consistently enough because they're going to be so mentally fucked by the time it comes around for a win that they won't hold it the whole way. All that to say, data is really important at the right time in your journey. It's not going to make you profitable. It's just like reading Trading in the Zone. Like there's that meme. It was like the guy who's reading Trading in the Zone, and it's like, wait, it's something he like still loses money after, and he's like, wait, that's not going to make me profitable. Or like, oh wait, it was like he read Trading in the Zone. It was like, wait, I need a profitable strategy to make money. I thought it was all psychology.
Yeah. Now you're sitting down at your desk. How do you block out all distractions and maintain the focus that you need?
I'll be honest, dude. I don't. Like, for example, in the morning, like when I'm working, like if I'm working on something, I'm super big on like ritual deep work, right? Like I'll literally, like these lights, you don't really see them too much, but I'll have those on. I have like brain.fm or some kind of like, lo-fi type beat playing. I'll have do not disturb. I purposefully just have one screen. That's all for like work, right? Like business stuff. Trading, dude, I'll be like, my girl's in there cooking breakfast. I'm talking to her. Like I've got a whole room of people. I almost kind of like the chaos like that personally. And again, I think it comes down again to the importance thing, because then you'll have somebody who is like this whole like freaking like routine of like making it like, just perfect. And because it's like, why? Well, you're doing that because this is like the holy grail. We're preparing for battle or something. And like, what does that do to the state of mind you're in? It puts you in a very defensive, like cautious, kind of timid, nervous state of mind. Right. So kind of goes, I have a weird, different philosophy on a lot of this stuff than most people, just because I realize like, it's funny, after becoming successful, so many people would ask me like, what was the biggest breakthrough? The biggest breakthrough for me was, number one, eliminating 80% of the nonsense that gets pushed around in the analysis part of trading. And then also just not really caring about completely blowing up. And a lot of people say, oh, he's a gambler. It's like, call me what you want, whatever. I'm not saying you should not care and then just risk it all in the next trade. Like, let's practice common sense here. But if you're so afraid of losing, if you're so afraid of failing a challenge or losing a trade or not being profitable this year, like, guess what? You'll never make it. You'll never make it because you're afraid. People that are afraid don't win. It's just the way the world works.
Yeah, you've got to be able to risk, and you don't want to risk. That's the problem. Now, we'll wrap up here on this last question. So what's the biggest lesson that you've learned from your community?
I think that the biggest lesson that I've learned from the community, if I had to embody into one thing, I'd say that the main bottleneck for most people, it has nothing to do with trading. Because most of the people that come through my program that actually saw crazy results, like there's a kid named Jaden, right? I've known this kid for years. We both started in this Discord called Playbit, and we both kind of grew as traders, right? Whenever he joined my program, since then he made $310,000 on Top Step payouts, right? Using the leaderboards. You may have even seen him on social media, right? Mm-hmm. Now, when I flew him out to Miami and we did a vlog, and I asked him, and I purposely didn't tell him that I was going to ask him this question because, I've done interviews where you're like, here's the question we're going to ask you. It just comes off as like weird and scripted, and it just feels like bullshit, right? So I didn't tell him anything, and I asked him, I said, what was the biggest breakthrough for you? And he said, honestly, man, like really just like getting introspective and journaling, not trading, but journaling about my life, like getting clear on the goals I had, shit like that. Because guess what, man? Like so many people that come into trading, they come into trading with a loser's mentality. I hate saying it like that, but that's just the truth. Like if you look around you, the greater portion of society are fucking losers. That's just the truth. I hate saying things like that because people think, wow, that guy's a sinister. It's just the truth. It's the truth. Like, would you look around you and say that most people have a life you'd want to live? For me, that's a huge hell no, right?
Yeah, I've got the same.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So it's like, what does that tell you, though? Just objectively speaking, that most people don't have a winner's mindset, not like a true, like a high level mindset. So I think that most of the battle for anyone, and including myself at one point, probably you too, anyone who has gone from being an unprofitable trader to being highly successful, it wasn't like they kept, watching videos and stumbled across some holy grail. What happened was that they finally leveled up as a human being. And a lot of people hear that and they think, oh, it's guru talk. And it's like, well, maybe you're not ready to hear that then. Maybe you don't want to hear that. Maybe you have that negative response because deep down, that's your problem. And it's much harder to solve that problem, to be honest, than it is to learn how to draw rectangles on a chart. But I think that it's also something that anyone can learn and anyone can do, which is a beautiful thing. And that's why trading makes you a much better person than when you started, if you do actually see success, because you have to become highly emotional intelligent. You have to become very aware of yourself, very patient, very decisive, very confident. All the qualities that make somebody a good and desirable person. You have to master all of them, right? And I think that's what working with, at this point, almost 2,000 people, that's what that has really shown me, is that the people who I see, and they all say this, like, this didn't just change me as a trader, it changed me as a human being. And to me, that's like the greatest win, right? Because I've always been like that, even when I was a little kid, like even when I was in the past life where I was doing things that, weren't right. I'm not proud of it, but I never was like a total, I was always trying to put people on. I was always trying to make people more money or make people better at whatever they did. Obviously, my intentions were in the wrong areas in my past life, but I've always wanted to be somebody who elevates everybody around them, because when you do that, you naturally elevate yourself. And other people ask, like, how do you get confidence? Doing shit like that, right? Doing those kind of things that not only make you win, but make everybody around you win. And that's just the natural drive that everybody has. Like, everybody's sitting here watching short form videos, motivating videos of people in fast cars, people in with watches, all these things. It's not so much like those things that they're chasing. It's the feeling that those things give you, right? And you can get the feeling that those things give you in much different ways than just, just making money from trading or any of these things. It's just by being a winner.
Yeah.
And it's those things that, like, even people that are listening to this, they have that feeling right now. They're like intuitively like, oh, I know what he's saying. Trust that feeling, right? Do things that give you that feeling and act on it. That's the biggest piece of advice I could have for anybody, trading or anything.
It's fantastic. It's absolutely brilliant to end the show on. Now, just a quick note before we wrap up. So, yeah, it's funny you say that anyone can do it, right? And I even like sort of looking at myself recently going, what the hell? Why? How am I able to just patiently sit here and not feel the urge to take all these setups that I'm just seeing, flow by, that I would have taken in the past for whatever reason, and then only wait for how am I able to do that? I'm surprised at myself. Like, I'm looking back and going, what the hell? So anyone can do it. Now, Jesse, what's the best way for folks to find out more about you?
YouTube, man. I mean, I'm everywhere, but I would say YouTube. Like, most of the people watching are probably pretty intermediate traders that are, either they've been trading for a while, struggling, or maybe they're new to trading and they're just overwhelmed. Either one of those, I think YouTube's the best place, because that's where I really get down to the nitty gritty of everything. I'm very practical with what I teach. I don't like a lot of stuff, you get some like very high level concept strategy, and then they're like, oh, if you want to know how to actually do this, like, buy my thing. I'll go ahead and tell you, like, you don't need to buy my course or anything. You can learn everything on my YouTube for free, right? So I'd say just go ahead and go on YouTube. That's the best place. And I have Instagram and stuff too, and Twitter, but like, how much can you really learn from a 60-second video or a set of words?
Yeah. All right. Well, look, folks, what we'll do is we'll hook up a link to the show notes page below here. You can go and find that link to his YouTube in there. Whilst you're down there, hit subscribe, like, and the notifications bell. But don't forget, we're going to jump into a price chart now and see what Jesse's doing on a price chart. So let's do that now. And folks, the video will be up here.